All righty.
All right. Thank you all for being here, and thank you for being on time. And if you could do roll call.
Sure. Chief Solberg.
Here.
Kent Volkmer. And we have
that's Andrew. That's Andrew, right?
Right.
Oh, yes.
And then Sheriff Joseph Dedman.
Here.
Director Eric Jorgensen. Colonel Jeffrey Glover.
Major Damon Cecil for Director Glover.
Got it. Rachel Mitchell.
Leslie Laments for Rachel Mitchell.
Right. Maricopa County Sheriff's Office. James McFarland, I believe. He joined us. Chief Bob Tyser.
Here.
Robert Smith.
Here.
And Brian Wright. All right. That makes a quorum.
All right. Thank you, Ann. Oops. I thought I was on mute. Thank you. Well, we'd like to start off. Chief Alaniz had to step off the board because of a change of appointment. And so I'd like to introduce Bob Tyser. Chief, if you want to give us just a quick background, I think most of us know you, but some might not. If you could give us a little bit background of where you started and how you got to where you're at now.
Sure. Thanks, Chief. Bob Tyser. I started in Arizona law enforcement with Prescott PD in 1989. Spent just a little time there and then went over to Arizona DPS and finished out a nearly 21-year career, retired in 2010. And I went to Colorado for 12 years to be a police chief, and then came back to Prescott Valley, where I'm from, a couple years ago to be chief here. How I came on this board, first of all, Chief, thank you for asking, and Jamie and Ann, thank you for your support. I had the privilege to be the commander of the Arizona Vehicle Theft Task Force back in 05 to 07. So I'm, again, very happy to see the stability here with you here, Ann. And when I was asked to be part of this board, I thought, wow, what a cool opportunity to come back to be part of the auto theft picture here and help out any way I can. So thank you.
Comes full circle.
Yeah, it does.
All right, thank you. Hopefully everyone had a chance to look at the September of 22 board meetings. That was the last meeting we had. We need a motion to approve those.
Motion.
Thank you, Sheriff Dedman. Second.
Second.
Thank you, Leslie. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Next is board chair, vice chair elections. I'm currently the chair, and Ken Volkmer from Pinal County Attorney's Office is the vice chair. Jamie, refresh my memory because I forget every year that we have to do this. How do we go about nominating chair and vice chair?
Mr. Chairman, members, I believe it would come from the board members themselves to nominate a chair and a vice, and then it would just be carried by vote.
Okay.
And we do them separately, I believe. Is that right?
Okay. Okay, sounds good. So if we could start out, is there a nomination for board chair?
I nominate you again, Chief Solberg, for chair.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations? All right. If we could have a vote on myself as chair, I will have to abstain, I believe. And so if we could have a vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Oh, sorry. Do I have to do a motion first? Yeah. So can I get a motion to approve myself as the chair of the ATA?
Motion.
Thank you, Sheriff
Second.
Dedman. Second. All right. Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
And Anna, I misspoke. That was Robert with the nomination.
Got it. Yep, I got it.
And thank you. And then
And I
yep,
Got it.
do we have a nomination for the vice chair?
I nominate Volkmer again. This is Robert Smith.
Thank you, Robert. Do we have any other nominations? Can I get a motion to approve vice chair as being Kent Volkmer with Pinal County Attorney's Office?
Motion.
to approve.
And I'll let you pick which one.
I think I heard Robert and then Leslie.
All right, Leslie could be our second. All in favor for Kent Volkmer as our vice chair, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, thank you for letting me run the meetings again for another year. Appreciate it. All right, next we'll go to Director McGuffin for a report.
Mr. Chairman, members, good morning. I want to start off this morning by kind of continuing with the board changes because we've had a few to not only board members, but to ATA staff as well. So I'd like to extend a welcome to Chief Ticer and Chief McFarland from MCSO, who this is their first meeting. And Chief Alanis, as mentioned, he did choose to leave Superior PD, and he went to the Central Arizona College Police Department, which made him no longer qualified to represent a city or town as required by statute. So the request went to ACOP, and we were fortunate enough to gain Chief Ticer in that position. MCSO recently advised of an assignment change that resulted in David Letourneau being replaced by Chief McFarland. So again, welcome, Chief. And then on one of our insurer reps, Brad Conley, his employment situation with Geico changed, so he was no longer able to represent an insurer. A request to fill that position has been made to the governor's office, but there's been no movement on that request at this point. And then as far as staff changes go, Amanda O'Halloran, who is our communications coordinator, was offered a position with the Secretary of State's office. So her last day was November 3rd. So we have been struggling a little bit with her absence in conducting some of our outreach and our communications functions within the ATA. But I am happy to report that we have conducted a hiring process, and we expect to make a job offer today, actually. So we should, by the time the next meeting rolls around, we will have someone else on board. We have made the request to fill the positions and to get terms extended because we're kind of in a bad way, as we've often reported to the board. This is a very difficult time to make any headway on extending terms or filling vacancies with sessions starting and being underway now. So I really don't expect anything to happen in those regards in a timely manner. We now have 5 of our members' terms that have expired, and we have 1 vacancy on the board. And I just as a favor, we would ask that expired members continue showing up, and just understand that our margins for a quorum with the vacancy are quite thin. So we appreciate everybody showing up so we can conduct these meetings. Moving on to the budget, the executive budget was released last week on Friday. As a reminder, the ATA, we had 2 requests that we put in. That was to increase funding for vertical prosecution, to add another $122,000 to that program, and then also to increase funding for our local grants so we could give more grants to law enforcement agencies for equipment and outreach and anything like that to further their mission. Unfortunately, there was no mention of those in the governor's budget. So we would consider that those asks are effectively dead. The chances of them being resurrected extremely thin, being that they don't appear in the budget. And that's not the worst news. Unfortunately, also contained in that budget is a proposal to sweep $7.3 million from the ATA fund. And as I think everybody knows, that the state budget is in kind of dire straits. There's projected hundreds of millions of dollars in deficit that is coming our way in the next 2 fiscal years. So this fund, as you may or may not know, has been transferred out of or swept on several different occasions for several different reasons. Budget stabilization, as they call it, is one of those reasons where money has been taken before. So the $7.3 million is what's in the budget. That's the governor's budget. There's still possibility that that will be negotiated, as the budget works its way through. So that's not a done deal by any stretch. It's still very early in the process. We do project that there will be $11.7 million in the fund at the end of this fiscal year. So while this is definitely bad news, we don't see it as anything that's going to be impacting our ability to do business and to grant funds as we normally have. Does anybody have any questions regarding that? Okay. Certainly we'll keep you apprised of any updates to that situation as they work through the system. At the September meeting, I mentioned that that our staff was going to be traveling to a multi-state regional meeting, and that meeting did occur. It included representatives from Arizona, Colorado, New Mexico, and Texas. We met in Albuquerque on November 14th through the 16th. Additionally, we had representatives from Canada, Minnesota, Louisiana, Michigan, and Virginia who attended that meeting to listen to the presentations from the 4 states. And all the states presented on topics specific to their state, which included their auto theft authority, their task force law enforcement efforts, their outreach programs, vertical prosecution, if they had it. And Arizona additionally did, we not only presented those topics, but Frank and Mary from our staff presented on Arizona's experience implementing the ACT database, which seemed to go over very well, and a quality presentation from those 2. So we got a lot out of that meeting. We always do. It's always good to hear from other states what's going on, and being able to maybe pick up a few things that we can bring back to Arizona and try if there's been some success in those other states. So then the next topic is an ISA review, kind of an audit that is done. As most of the board is probably familiar, we issue ISAs to DPS, and we use those to fund vehicle purchases and vehicle buildup. And so Ann and Frank completed a review of DPS's compliance with the contract provisions specific to those ISA agreements. And what we wanted to do, the idea was to review to ensure that the ISA funds were spent in appropriate categories. So as the contract specified, and that those monies were fully expended. So DPS was able to show that all funds were fully expended, and that they spent the money in accordance with the contract. So everything came out just perfect as far as that audit went. And additionally, we were so happy with the way that we built a process around that we actually modified our grant procedures by incorporating a master control summary that gives us a very quick look at all of the grants that we issue, and ensures specifically that we don't have unexpended grant dollars out there. So that's just important. Sometimes as we overlap and bring money forward into a new fiscal year based on how we're granting, it's not unheard of to lose track of those dollars, and that's never a good thing. So we have a system in place, certainly now that that we can look at a moment's notice and know where those monies are and that they've been fully expended, and that we can close those grants as we issue new ones. So that was a good exercise for us to go through, which is a nice segue into ISAs for DPS. January is normally the month that we would issue. Over the last 3 years, we have issued ISA to DPS for the purchase of vehicles. We do this generally twice a year, once in January and once in June. The June ISA is for vehicle buildup, and we know that DPS is going to carry that money into the new fiscal year as those vehicles are built, and then they can pay for them. But in working with Captain Axland over the last couple of weeks, we've concluded that the task force has sufficient funding to make vehicle purchases without using ISA dollars. So they will be using grant dollars that were previously awarded. This is important because we want to keep the amount that the task force has on hand at a reasonable level. We always think it's a good idea for them to carry money into the next fiscal year because then DPS isn't on the hook for payroll and some of those type of issues, that they can be using grant money for that. So they carry money forward into the next fiscal year. We just don't want that money to be excessive, because that's a bad look if they're carrying too much money. So try to keep that money at a reasonable level. These purchases of vehicles will do just that. And we'll revisit the ISA issue as we get closer to the fiscal year end regarding vehicle buildup. And if the captain tells me that they think they need some money for that, then we will come to the board in June for that approval. Moving on, I think last time we met, I talked about the newsletter initiative. We're trying to do a better job of getting the word out and trying to increase our followership and our communication. We did send the second quarterly newsletter in October. We sent that to our list, which included just under 9,000 addresses. We had 8,300 of those that were delivered, and we had a 25% open rate. And it sounds kind of low, but from what I'm told by people who know these things, it's actually a pretty good open rate, very high. So the third quarter newsletter will be sent on Monday, and it's a good exercise for us to be putting this information out, and we will be hoping to increase that followership and get some of those scripts and information that hopefully allows people to gain more of an interest in auto theft and specifically in how to protect their vehicles from being stolen. So, and with that, I would like to go into a slide deck real quick. I've got 3 slides that I would like to present. Okay, my screen tells me I'm presenting, so I'm assuming I am. Okay. So the first one that I want to talk about is Kia Hyundai. We've been talking about this over the last year or so. Mary just put this information together for us. The dark blue bars are 2023, and the lighter colored gray bars are 2022. The reason that they don't run the full length of this January through December, of course, is because we don't have that data prior to May of 2022. So this represents all of the data that we have in the ACT database right now. And as you can see, I think everybody's aware that Kia Hyundai issue has exploded in Arizona, and it's really not tapering off. We do have a lower number for December, after a November high of 468 thefts of those vehicles. Lesser number in December. You know, we're certainly going to be interested in seeing where that trend goes, but I have a feeling that it's going to stay high, you know, for quite some time until these vehicles get the fix done with them. And even at that, I think we all kind of understand that a lot of these vehicles aren't going to be fixed just because of owner apathy or whatever the cause. And we're probably going to see these Kia Hyundais, 10 years from now that are still a part of our theft picture in Arizona and across the country, in the same way that other vehicles that are easy to steal, like the late 90s Hondas, the Civics and the Accords, still find a place on our top lists for stolen vehicles. I feel like these are going to be kind of the same way. So we'll continue to keep the board apprised of what's going on in this situation, but it's still very high. And then some statistics out of these are 2022. These are from NICB. These were just released in November of 2023. So about 10, 11 months, after the fact. But kind of the big things here are the total thefts in Arizona. They report that at 21,694. That is an increase of 5.1% over 2021. The national increase was 7.5%. So Arizona still has a lower number of increase than the rest of the nation did. And this year was, I think, one of the first years maybe that we've seen, certainly in the last few years, where we've actually exceeded 1 million vehicles stolen across the country. Ms. Trask, you have a question?
Hi, yes, I was just curious, do they have like what's attributed to that? Is it because some of these vehicles that they found is a high theft, or is there something else driving that?
Mr. Chairman, Ms. Trask, and members, the only thing that I guess what I hear and what I read are the post-pandemic, there was a lot of crime that both violent crime and property crime that increased, and for I guess various reasons. What we're seeing now is that violent crime across the country is actually coming down and significantly coming down, even though the perception that crime is still up is still alive and well among the residents. But property crime, especially when it comes to vehicle theft, is that one category that has seemed to remain high across the country.
Okay, thank you.
And then now we can move to the ACT stats. And in 2023, of course, we have immediate, now that we have a full year in ACT of stats in there, we can pull these stats. We always let the stats settle a little bit because law enforcement agencies will make changes to their stats. They seem to take about 7 to 10 days to maybe get reported thefts in there. Maybe delays in thefts are actually making their way into the system, or they're clearing or canceling what they thought were thefts. Any number of actions that a law enforcement agency might take that affect the stats. So we let them settle for 7 or 10 days, and then they seem to be pretty stable after that. We know that these are kind of a moving target in a sense. These numbers, if you pulled them today, they would look a little bit different, but the change is very slight as once those stats settle a little bit. So we had really good news for 2023. Our information shows that there is a 6.6% decline in auto theft in Arizona from 2023 over 2022. So these are all vehicles that were stolen in calendar year 2023. We also had some really good news on recoveries, 16,733 recoveries, which equals 83% of the vehicles that were stolen and recovered in 2023. So this isn't recovering vehicles in 2022 and counting them in 2023. We're pretty careful to make sure that these numbers are right. I asked Mary to double check this number, the 83%, because it's about 10% higher than we normally see. We generally see the recovery rate about 71 to 74% in the state. So this number, appeared as a bit of an anomaly to me, but she confirms that it's correct, and so we believe her, and it's actually really good news. It's a pretty high rate of recovery. And then lastly, the Kia Hyundai issue, just to tell you how significant this is in the state. They in 2023 accounted for 21% of our theft problem. And as you'll remember, when we started reporting on this, I think we were seeing numbers around that 7 to 9% when things started going bad with Kia Hyundai, and they have just progressively climbed in percentage. This is getting on the same level as I think the last time I saw Colorado's number. It was about 25% of their theft problem was specifically Kia Hyundai issues. So. Does anyone else have any questions? If not, I'm going to stop presenting. And so, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, that concludes my report, and I'd be happy to answer any questions on any of this or any that anybody might have.
Thank you. I don't see any questions. Next up is our financial report. Frank Sabalos.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. I'm going to go ahead and present my screen. Okay. As of January 1st of this year, we had a fund balance of $11,214,000. Our yearly revenue at that time was $3,879,889. We are currently in the second assessment, 23B assessment right now, and the revenue for that is slowly trickling in. ACT support, we were finally able to pay $23,750 to Planet for the support of ACT. We are in the process of finalizing the last payment of that. Should be hopefully by the end of this month, sometime in February. We will still have funds available, and I'll show you that in our expenditure plan. Appropriation, our operating budget, we have spent $157,820, still leaving about $540,000 to spend, and we'll explain how that's going to be. And then grants, we have spent over $2,941,647, with about a little over $2.9 million still remaining to spend. And we've already paid the task force for third quarter, and we're still working through the vertical prosecutor grants at this time. And we still have our SIMS fund balance of $1,432. So that's just a little snapshot of this. I'm going to stop sharing this screen so I can switch over to my other screen. Okay, this is going to be our expenditure plan. A little bit of a different format than what you've probably seen before. But at the end of the day, this is what you see in the black is my projections for the remainder of this budget year. As Jamie mentioned, we're not at this time giving $200,000 to DPS. So our return to the fund balance is going to be for this budget year $286,000. Goes back into the fund balance, and we'll end this budget year at this time at $11,754,000. We are seeing a really high interest returns from the treasurer's office. So if that continues, we're looking at about $441,000 just in investment income, which is really good. And then the rest is just normal expenses at this time. The $71,000 that you see right here, that is actually kind of the last payment for Planet support. And then the $54,000 that's right here is just a projection, just in case we are able to do additional enhancements to the ACT support. We have money to do that. That wouldn't come out of our operating budget. So at this time, I would like to request approval of the expenditure plan as I stated.
Can we get a motion to approve the financial plan?
Damon Cecil, I submit a motion to accept the financial plan as presented by Frank Sawallis.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Thank you, Sheriff. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, thank you, Frank.
Okay, I'm going to stop sharing my screen on that. If there's any questions before I continue, there is one other matter that I'm going to talk about. Okay, not hearing any questions. I do want to bring to the board's attention a matter that has been brought to ATA staff. An insurance company has notified DIFI that they believe that they have overpaid the ATA assessment for the past 3 years and are requesting a refund in an amount of over $21,000. Staff is currently researching the documents that the insurance company has provided to justify the refund, and we're also looking at statutory authority that will allow us to refund this amount. The matter is also being researched by DIFI legal staff in the Attorney General's office. This is the first time that this kind of occurrence for us as ATA, and we just want to let the board know about this matter. And what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to pause for a second, and I'm going to turn it back over to Director McGuffin for a comment. Jamie?
Mr. Chairman, members, I just wanted to let the board know right along with this, kind of as a companion piece, that DIFI is aware of legislation that has been introduced that would provide a statutory process to provide a refund to an insurer who can validate that they have overpaid. This is not a DIFI bill or an ATA bill. This is a insurer bill. And so the bill has been has not been assigned to a committee. It has simply been introduced, and ATA has been involved in conversation to craft the language that would help ensure that the process works for us, that it gives us what we need to validate the request and to ensure that we have statutory authority to actually make a refund. So we will keep the board advised as of this bill's status.
Question, do you know, assuming the error is correct and we owe that money and we can't pay them back, is it possible just to reduce their next payment by the amount that we owe them?
Director McGuffin, do you want me to answer that?
If we know.
Sure.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, that would not be very wise for us to start moving from one budget year to another budget year, from one assessment to another assessment. We have to make sure that we craft this just right on our refunds, because if we start trying to move things around, things could get missed. So that's where we're at right now.
I'll leave it to the experts. Thank you. Frank and Jamie, I'm assuming if we find there's an error, will we do an audit to make sure that didn't happen to others? I guess it might depend on if there's an error, where that error occurred, but that would be my other concern.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, one of the challenges right now is that the insurance companies are self-reporting. So they're reporting their numbers to us. We have no knowledge of what their data says. So this information is new to us, that they're telling us that there's an error. So if there's other insurance companies that say that there's an error with their data that they're providing.
Okay, it's them, not us.
Correct, sir.
I like that answer. All right, thank you. Back to you, Frank.
That's the end of my report. Any questions?
All right, hearing none. Ann, Public Awareness and Grant Programs.
All right, Mr. Chair, members, fiscal year 24 grants, we're 6 months through the fiscal year, and staff is determining what additional funding, end of year funding, we'll have to issue for a grant solicitation between now and the June 30. So we'll keep you posted on that. Fiscal year 25 grants will also start to be worked on, and those grants will be reviewed along with the fiscal year 24 at the June board meeting. So the vertical prosecution grant, CC&R updates. We performed 2 CCNRs for the Mojave and Maricopa counties last fall. We were scheduled to present these at the November meeting, which we weren't able to have, but both counties were fully compliant and in all categories. And I want to thank staff for assisting us with their review. We're currently working on Pinal and La Paz County for the next round of grant compliance reviews, and we'll present those at the March meeting. The ATA and DI-5 Public Information Division outreach, Director McGuffin participated in a panel in Scottsdale, Seniors Across America. The panel responded to questions about insurance topics, auto theft in Maricopa County, and the vertical prosecution. We've also been providing support to local police departments who are sort of back doing community and theft prevention events. And so we provided Watch Your Car and theft prevention resources and materials for them. And a lot of that was mostly related to, at the time in the fall, was a lot of GAIN events that we were supporting. But I know Mesa PD is doing a big push to promote the Watch Your Car program in their community. And so we may see our Watch Your Car numbers start to uptick. I believe that concludes my report, unless we have any questions.
And just a question for the fiscal year 25 grants, when will those solicitations for grant applications start?
For the task force and the vertical, you mean?
No, for the police
year
departments
end
or any other. Yeah.
I'll have to, Director McGuffin and Frank and I will be meeting probably next week. I would assume those would be ready by end of February, March 1st.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. Next up is Law Enforcement Subcommittee report. I have no update. We have not met. Next up is Public Awareness Subcommittee, Robert Smith.
Nothing to report at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Vertical prosecution. Let's see. I lost my notes. Who's here? Leslie, are you leading us off?
I can.
Right.
I don't have much to report in terms of like significant sentencings, but we did have in state Miguel Montes that was handled by DCA and Ashley Horn. The restitution that was ordered in that case was a little over $27,000. We also had we had a Manuel Steven Limon, who he had 2 VTTF matters, 2 theft of means and drug possession cases. So he ended up serving, or he was sentenced to 4.5 years in the Department of Corrections, and then he'll come out with a probation tail in that matter. And then in terms of our VTTF grant attorneys, Attorney Frank Woods will be moving out of the position probably in 2 to 3 months. So we are currently recruiting for another prosecutor to fill his role. He's going to be a big loss for me and the task force because he did such a phenomenal job, and he recently presented at the seminar on vertical prosecution. He's been doing it for almost 4 full years and has done just a phenomenal job and has been very passionate about his role in that regard. So I just wanted to advise the board that we will be locating and implementing a new contract and a new attorney in that regard. So I'll keep the board and, of course, Anne updated for approvals and paperwork and whatnot as soon as I have somebody.
Got it. I don't believe we have anybody else. Everybody seemed to be in trial or otherwise busy today. Anybody else from the vertical prosecutors on the phone?
I just jumped on. Lonnie Pennell from Pinal. Andrew Orozco was here earlier, but he jumped off. I'm the bureau chief over our vehicular crimes. I haven't been to one of these yet, and I apologize. But Andrew Orozco and Cameron Pat are our new attorneys. As far as significant sentences that we've recently gotten, We had a 7.5-year sentence on Daniel Ubel. He was a serial burglar, serial car thief, and he had some priors for recent thefts. We've also got a sentencing set for Monday on Adam Harris, who's going to be sentenced to 6.5 years in the Department of Corrections for another auto theft case. And then for a significant restitution in State versus Nico Biarco, there was a restitution order of over $12,000.
Thanks, Lonnie.
Thank you.
I believe that is it as far as the prosecutors. I did want to add, and thank you to Leslie Lemens and Frank Woods for joining us, for Frank attending the conference or the meeting in Albuquerque. He was so sick, and he just pulled it together, and I felt so bad for him, but he did a great job, and we're sorry to lose him too, Leslie. So thank you for that information.
All right, thank you, everyone. Next up, the Auto Theft Task Force, Captain Axland.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, the following are stolen vehicles, drug seizures, and arrests for September 1st, 2023 through December 31st, 2023. The task force recovered 621 stolen vehicles valued at approximately $12,547,191 with 108 arrests. 29 of those 108 arrests had drug charges. The task force seized approximately 2.5 grams of cocaine, a half pound of methamphetamine, 4.7 ounces of fentanyl, 2 ounces of pills, and $1,132. The task force served 8 residential business structure search warrants, 7 vehicle warrants, and 14 electronic search warrants. The task force had 1,657 other agency assists. The task force seized 8 guns, one of which was stolen. Staffing. An IGA was approved and signed by DPS and Surprise PD to bring a detective to the Vehicle Theft Task Force. A process will be conducted on Monday, January 22nd. Events and trends. Task Force detectives attended auto theft conferences in Honolulu, Texas, and South Lake Tahoe during this time period. In October, the Vehicle Theft Task Force District completed a complex long-term vehicle theft fraud investigation in Phoenix. Detectives received information of multiple motorcycle thefts being conducted by a person using social media sites to locate motorcycles being sold by private parties. The suspect would arrive by himself, leave fraudulent funds with the motorcycle owner while test driving the motorcycle, and then never return the motorcycle. Undercover detectives and social media accounts were utilized to locate the suspect, locate stolen motorcycles, and purchase a stolen motorcycle. The task force served a residential search warrant to arrest the suspect and recover evidence related to the ongoing case involving multiple thefts of motorcycles and counterfeit money. The motorcycle and $24,600 in counterfeit monies was seized. The suspect was booked on 3 counts of theft of means, 3 counts of fraud schemes, 2 counts of trafficking stolen property, and 1 count of forgery. On November 15th, detectives apprehended a suspect who was trying to sell a stolen trailer on Facebook in Phoenix. The suspect was driving by in a truck pulling a trailer with a Can-Am UTV. Initially, the suspect attempted to flee, but with the assistance of Phoenix PD, was taken into custody without incident. The suspect was on probation for auto theft and trafficking in stolen property. Detectives recovered a stolen trailer, Can-Am UTV, and a motor and tranny from a 2007 Chevy. 2 additional defaced trailers were seized along with 3 pickups. The suspect was booked on several counts of theft of means. On November 21st, detectives served a search warrant in Glendale with the assistance of DPS SWAT. 3 stolen vehicles, a 2004 Chevy pickup, 2013 Mazda passenger car, and a 2023 Yamaha motorcycle were recovered along with a handgun, methamphetamine, and fentanyl for sale. Suspect was booked on theft of means, prohibit possessor, 2 warrants, burglary tools, dangerous drugs for sale, and narcotic drugs for sale. That concludes my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Not hearing any. All right. Next up is call to the public. Is there anyone from the public that would like to ask or say anything? All right. Hearing none. Are there any other reports on current events or matters coming up? Go ahead, Ed.
Mr. Chair, I neglected to mention in my report, the Arizona Crime Prevention Conference will be May 28th through 30th this year down at Wild Horse Pass. There's information in our newsletter that's going out on Monday, but once I receive a flyer, I'll push that out to members and through ACOP and the Sheriff's Association. So stay tuned for that. That's coming up. Should be a great conference.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Any others? All right. Our next meeting is March 29th at 10 a.m. Note that is a slight change from our normal pattern because of spring break for a lot of people. So March 29th will be our next meeting. That will bring us to a close. If I could get a motion to close the meeting.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Robert. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Leslie. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. You all have a good couple months. See you in March.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Stop recording.